Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. Thank you very much for joining us for this event, which is co-organized by the Commonwealth Secretariat and the African Union Commission. This event is entitled Addressing Climate Change, Biodiversity Loss, and Land Degradation in Africa through the Commonwealth Living Lands Charter and the African Union Strategic Frameworks. My name is Chibesa Pensulo. I am the Commonwealth Climate Finance Regional Advisor for Africa. It's my great pleasure to be your moderator for this event. I would like to call upon the Director of Climate Change and Oceans from the Commonwealth Secretariat, Mr. Suresh Yadav, to give opening remarks. Mr. Yadav, thank you.
Thank you, Chibesa. Honorable Minister, Excellency Mike Mofosa, Republic of Zambia, Excellencies representing the Government of Zambia, dear colleagues, distinguished guests. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome you all to this side event. Today we come together at a time of profound urgency. Our terrestrial ecosystem, the forests, soils, rivers, and biodiversity that sustain life are under siege. They face a triple threat: climate change, land degradation, and biodiversity loss. These are not abstract challenges, these are the reality that affect every aspect of human life, well-being. Our most precious resources, food, land, water, soil, and biodiversity, are vanishing before our eyes. We have both environmental and human crises, covering our livelihood, health, security, and dignity, and those of our future generation yet to come. The Commonwealth Secretariat is determined to stand with our member states in meeting these challenges heads on. That is why we have developed the Commonwealth Living Land Charter and Implementation Framework, a bold and practical blueprint for coordinated action across our 56 family of nations. This framework is designed to deliver on the commitments of the Rio Conventions in a way that's synergistic, coherent, and impactful. Our history reminds that Commonwealth has always been a leader in environmental stewardship. The Langkawi Declaration 1989 paved the way for the Earth Summit in Rio, which gave birth to the UN Convention on Climate Change, Desertification, and Biological Diversity. More than 3 decades later, we continue to lead, most notably through the Commonwealth Living Land Charter, ratified by the Commonwealth Heads of the Government meeting held in 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda. Our leaders have spoken with one voice. It is our shared responsibility to restore nature, manage land sustainably, and advance development that leaves no one behind. The scale of the Commonwealth is extraordinary. We can encompass a quarter of the world's land area with 11 million square kilometers of arable land and 9 million square kilometers of forest. Nearly one-third of the world's mega biodiverse countries are part of our family, and our small island states host more than 400 endemic species. This immense biodiversity is not just statistics, it is a source of hope and opportunities. It gives us the power to contribute meaningfully to global goals under the Rio Conventions. But let us clear, one challenges are immense. Climate change is devastating many of our nations. Disasters are costing lives and livelihood, wiping out millions of development goals and slashing national GDPs. Insecurity is rising, soils are depleting, water stress is acute, especially in Africa, where some of the most water-stressed nations in the world are located. These realities underscore why the Living Land Charter is so critical. Restoring our land is not optional, it is a vital defense against the accelerating impacts of climate change. Our response must be bold, integrated, and inclusive. Thus, the Commonwealth Living Land Charter focuses on 6 critical themes: climate resilient agriculture, soil and waste management, biodiversity conservation, carbon neutral livestock systems, inclusion of indigenous and local communities, and lastly, the climate health nexus. This is a holistic vision by our leaders, one that empowers us to safeguard our planet and its ecosystem for current as well as for the future generation. But it is also a deeply human vision. As we step into the future, we must rekindle our bond with the land, just as our ancestors did, and as the indigenous communities around the Commonwealth continue to do so. We are not merely stewards of nature, we are part of it. When we care for land, we care for humanity, we care for ourselves. When we restore ecosystem, we restore hope around the world. The active implementation of the Living Land Charter, including the working together with our Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, will be the most powerful expression of our commitment to Mother Earth and to the well-being of every member of the Commonwealth family. And we are proud to partner with with the African Union to ensure that vulnerable states across the continent take coordinated steps to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and land degradation in an integrated manner. So today, I invite you to bring your insights, your experience, and your guidance. Let us learn from each other. Let us innovate together. Let us act with urgency and determination because the time of incremental change has passed. The time for bold collective action is now. Together we can make the Commonwealth Living Land Charter vision a reality, not just for Africa, but for the Commonwealth and also for the world. With these opening remarks, Honorable Minister and your delegation, I welcome my own behalf, on behalf of my Secretary General, who conveyed her best wishes for this event. So thank you very much for joining. Over to you, Chubesa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yadav. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to call upon Honorable Minister Mike Mposha, the Minister of Green Economy and Environment of the Republic of Zambia, to address us this morning. Honorable Minister, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you, Director of Ceremony. Permit me to start by recognizing the presence of Mr. Suresh Yadav, Director, Climate Change and Oceans, Your Excellencies, representatives of the Commonwealth Secretariat and the African Union Commission. In a special way, let me also recognize the presence of our Provincial Minister for Western Province in Zambia, Honorable Bangweta, His Excellency, our Zambian ambassador here in Brazil, members of the Zambian delegation, may I simply say, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me thank the organizers of this event, the Commonwealth Secretariat and the African Union, for organizing this very important event, but also for inviting Zambia to speak at this event. To speak at this event, thank you very much, on a topic which is meant to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and land degradation in Africa through the Commonwealth Living Lands Chapter and African Union strategic frameworks. Very important topic for us, and I must say that it is such a great honor to address this important high-level dialogue, one that speaks to the heart of Africa's development, the soul of our continent, and indeed the future of our children and grandchildren. Across Africa today, climate change is no longer an abstract negotiation issue. It is a lived reality, felt through prolonged droughts, devastating floods, declining crop yields, degraded forests, and disappearing species. When a community loses a forest, it loses its water tower, its pharmacy, its safety net, and indeed a piece of its cultural identity. At the same time, land degradation and biodiversity loss are accelerating, undermining food security, water availability, and economic resilience. For Zambia, these three crises, climate change, land degradation, and biodiversity loss, are deeply intertwined and must be addressed together and not in isolation. This is precisely the vision of the Commonwealth Living Lands chapter adopted in Kigali in the year 2022. The chapter promotes joint implementation across the UNFCCC, UNCCD, and CBD, and provides a coherent five-pillar approach that integrates climate resilience, climate resilient agriculture, soil and water management, biodiversity restoration, sustainable livestock systems, and the knowledge of indigenous and local communities. It also calls for stronger governance, financing, and evidence-based planning. These priorities align perfectly with Africa's continental frameworks. The African Union Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy, the Green Recovery Action Plan, the African Action Plan on Carbon Markets, the Biodiversity Strategy, and the Great Green Wall Initiative. Together, they provide an African-led model for restoring land, rebuilding biodiversity, strengthening climate resilience, Zambia is proud to be among the 4 Commonwealth countries advancing implementation of the Living Lands chapter. For us, it provides a pivotal and practical framework to align our NDC, National Adaptation Plans, and NBSAP in a coherent and impactful manner. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to express Zambia's sincere appreciation to the Commonwealth Secretariat for the deployment of technical support, which for 3 years assisted to strengthen coordination across climate change, biodiversity, and sustainable land management, and supported the integration of our NDC, NAP, and NBSAP processes, including our climate finance frameworks. This long-term embedded support has left lasting institutional capacity. We also acknowledge related Commonwealth initiatives such as the Climate Finance Access Hub, the Blue Chapter, the NDC program, and emerging networks on gender-responsive climate action. In the year 2021, Zambia undertook a comprehensive climate finance mapping exercise with Commonwealth support, identifying financing streams that jointly address climate change, land degradation, and biodiversity loss. Ladies and gentlemen, with a strong policy foundation in place, Zambia has moved decisively to implement integrated actions on climate, land, and biodiversity. Allow me to highlight a few areas of tangible progress in the following manner. Number one, climate resilient and sustainable agriculture. Zambia is scaling climate smart agriculture, agroforestry, and regenerative farming through integrated forest landscape programs and NDC-aligned actions, restoring soil fertility, reducing emissions, and improving food security. Number two, soil and water conservation. Through the Living Lands chapter and our NAP, we are restoring degraded watersheds, protecting catchments, and strengthening integrated water governance. Number three, biodiversity and forest restoration. We are expanding community forestry, strengthening REDD+ implementation, and investing in large-scale restoration programs aligned with the African Union's Great Green Wall Initiative. Number four, carbon markets SPARK initiative. Zambia, under the SPARK program, is building high-integrity Article 6 systems, strengthening MRV capacities, and identifying sectors where carbon market opportunities can unlock finance for integrated climate and land and biodiversity outcomes. Number five, community leadership. Through community-based natural resource management, traditional seed systems, and preparatory governance, we are ensuring that indigenous and local communities remain central to decision-making. Number six, integrated national frameworks and nature-based solutions. Our NDC implementation framework, with its 18 outcomes and 135 indicators, guides results-based action. We are scaling nature-based solutions to restore ecosystems, protect watersheds, and support resilient livelihoods. Based on Zambia's experience, allow me to highlight 3 expectations for effective implementation of the Living Lands chapter. Number 1, strengthened national and local coordination. Number 2, expanded technical assistance and predictable financing. Number 3, enhanced support for communities and women, and indeed the youth. We look forward to these outcomes under the chapter. In conclusion, I wish to stress that we stand at a critical moment. The ideas are known, and it's very clear that the ideas are known. The frameworks are in place. What we need now is decisive, coordinated implementation. Let us use the Living Lands chapter and Africa's strategic frameworks as living instruments that change how we plan, invest, and work together. Zambia stands ready to collaborate with the Commonwealth partners, to collaborate with African Union partners to ensure that Africa's lands remain truly living lands for generations to come. I want once again to thank the organizers of this event for allowing us to speak at this event, but also for giving us an opportunity to highlight the benefits that the chapter provides, and working together how we can ensure that those that are most affected by the loss of forest, by the loss of biodiversity, are assisted to recover. Thank you very much and have a productive discussion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Mposha, for those very inspiring opening remarks and a very inspiring keynote speech, and telling us the progress that Zambia is making towards coordinated implementation of climate action, reversing land degradation, and reversing biodiversity loss. Honorable Minister, may we kindly call upon you and your delegation and all officials present to come to the front for an official photograph, please, before we proceed with the rest of our event this morning. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. We're now moving on to the second segment of this event, which is the panel discussion. So I would like to ask the panelists to join me on the stage. Oh, please, 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 pardon me, I was going too fast. I almost missed our introductory presentation, from which all of us can learn more about the Living Lands Charter. And for that, I would like to call upon Ms. Ozomaka Nwamara, who is the head of climate change at the Commonwealth Secretariat. Ms. Nwamara, please take the floor. Thank you, and apologies for that.
Thank you. That's not... Good morning, Honorable Minister, Director, Commissioner, distinguished delegates, all protocols observed. So it is indeed my pleasure to just take us through the overview presentation on the Commonwealth Living Lands Charter, which we've really heard a lot about this morning. So in itself, the Commonwealth Living Lands Charter is indeed our framework that has been agreed at the highest level in the Commonwealth. Our Commonwealth heads of government, the 56 member states, have adopted this in 2022 in Kigali, in Rwanda. And now this shows political commitment. So we're very pleased to have this Commonwealth Living Lands Charter to support what you see here. Land conservation across the Commonwealth. We may know we have over a quarter of the land mass globally, and working together in synergy across all the 3 Rio conventions, you would find out that you do have land elements to be worked upon. So we are here at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. Indeed, we look at the components of mitigation and adaptation. When you look at the UN CBD, that's the Convention on Biological Diversity, you find out that we have to safeguard our ecosystem services, And of course, when we look at UNCCD, the Convention to Combat Desertification, you find out that we're looking at climate resilient land management. Now, the intersection of all these three shows you the comprehensive conservation and sustainable use of land resources. And of course, this is our attempt and leadership by the Commonwealth Secretariat to take a coordinated approach, coordinated action across the three Rio conventions and all levels to protect, to restore nature, and support communities. So this is really important for us because this is about livelihoods as well. Now, in implementing the charter, this is our structure. We have 6 thematic areas. So the central block, we're looking at climate resilient agriculture for food security, sustainable green cover and biodiversity, soil and water conservation and management, carbon neutral and climate resilient livestock rearing and animal husbandry, indigenous peoples and local communities, and of course the climate health nexus. Now all of these are intertwined and we work across all the synergies for maximum impact. Of course, to the left, as I have explained in the previous slide, you have the 3 Rio conventions for which all our member countries are signed up to. You have targets to implement, and this is one area in which we are working towards that. And of course, the cross-thematic areas, we're looking at justice and equity, green jobs and business development, mainstreaming gender and youth is key, as well as using technology, earth observation, data, and AI. And we have a feedback loop wherein we have monitoring, evaluation, and learning across board. Now, we work with established platforms within the Secretariat. For example, the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub is supporting with implementation. In another slide, I'll show you one project example. We have the evidence-based analysis and policy influence, financing, institutional structure, so capacity building is key, human and institutional, technical assistance, and of course, knowledge management and sharing. And the national policies, which you're all familiar with, your NDCs, your nationally determined contributions, your national adaptation plans, your NAPs, your MBSAPs, looking at biodiversity, land degradation, neutrality, and of course, your health NAPs as well. So we work to make sure you have a comprehensive approach to achieve your climate targets across all these national frameworks on climate action. Now, this is the structure that we have for delivery. Our Commonwealth Secretariat coordinates across board, but we work in partnership. So towards the left-hand side, of course, the Rio conventions we mentioned with your focal points. We have expert organizations, for example, Conservation International, the NDC Partnership, the MBSAP Accelerator, Africa Union, our co-convener, and we have Commonwealth accredited organizations, about 96 of them, and those working in the intersection of land conservation. Now, we also have a Living Lands Advisory Group and thematic working groups, as well as, of course, our member countries for which we implement the work on. Now, the established platforms within the Secretariat, I mentioned the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, our Living Land Fellows, and of course the experts across the Environmental Resilience Directorate. Our advisory and thematic working groups, we have here the thematic working group across the 6 themes. I won't go through all of them, but we also have country leads. So we have champions that step up to work with us on the specific thematic areas. And of course, we can see that Zambia and Malta are leading on soil and water conservation management. So we're really appreciative of your leadership in this light. This shows you some of the achievements to date. And looking across the first block, herein where we have worked on specific projects through a Climate Finance Access Hub. Just to highlight one of them, our Commonwealth Regional Climate Finance Advisor for Africa, as well as with the African Development Bank. We worked on the investment plan that did support access to the climate investment funds, nature, people, and community investment project in the Zambezi region. Then we also work on thought leadership pieces, wherein we garner the tacit knowledge in implementation, in stakeholder engagement, and we develop knowledge products to share. For example, a forest carbon toolkit, which is available, building on the lessons learned from working in the Guyana region, Iwokrama, and of course the policy engagement, like the likes of such events as we have now in the last section. So all of these are available on our website, and we'll encourage you to access them. So this is just one example, and we're quite excited. We received this announcement just 2 days here at COP. With our Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, our national advisors in Fiji and in Tuvalu, working together with the thematic experts at the Secretariat, we were able to access the Global EBA Fund, working in partnership with Pacifica Communities University in Fiji. So this project is accelerating ecosystem-based adaptation informed by indigenous and traditional knowledge. So we know we talked about using knowledge, innovation, AI, but we also make sure that we do not lose our indigenous knowledge and traditional input, working together in partnership with the communities on ground. So we're quite excited about this piece of work. It's going to be for 2 years, and we're going to be working together with the communities in our Pacific member countries, but also drawing on the knowledge, the lessons, and we would have knowledge products to share that can be translated across the Commonwealth for the benefit of our member countries. So we're looking to strengthen the knowledge, building on the foundations to scale these approaches across board. In the future, we're going to continue engaging with our member countries, with our partners, and we're going to keep working with our Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub and Spokes Network with our thematic regional and national advisors to integrate action and have demonstrable projects for member countries across the 3 Euro conventions. Yes, the technical support is key for us, looking at food systems, drought insurance, policy development, capacity building, and across the 6 thematic areas as mentioned earlier. So thank you very much, and we're happy to engage. We also do have QR code cards that have everything I've spoken about and much more on our website. So before you leave, please pick a QR code so you get to know more about the Commonwealth Living Lands Charter and the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Namara. And now I'd like to call upon our panelists, and I will start with Dr. Samson Ogala. And I'm starting with Dr. Ogala because he represents the co-convener of this event, which is the African Union Commission. Dr. Ogala is the head of the Climate Change Unit at the African Union Commission. Please take the podium. And we would also like to invite our country representatives to join us on the stage. From the Gambia, we have Ms. Mariama Jaju, who is the director of the Central Project Coordination Unit at the Ministry of Environment. Sorry, we shall just pause a moment for official photographs. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. So I'll do that again. Ms. Mariama Jaju is the director of the Central Project Coordination Unit at the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources of the Gambia. A pleasure to have you with us, Madam. We also have from Lesotho, representing the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Mr. Malefatane Ntimo. Please join us on the stage, Mr. Ntimo. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And from Eswatini, we have Mr. Isaac Gladler, who is the Executive Director of the Eswatini Environment Authority. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. So I would like to start with our co-convener, the African Union Commission, to get our conversation going around the Living Lands Charter and around the African Union's strategic frameworks that support this endeavor. Dr. Ogala, the AU supports continental coordinated implementation of the multilateral environmental agreements. In your view and experience, how can countries move from paper mandates to real on-the-ground integration across the 3 Rio conventions? And I would like to kindly ask the panelists to hold the mic very, very close to your mouth so that the audience can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chibeza. And just to also register appreciation to the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, Director Suresh and Uzo. Thank you for putting this together, and Africa Union also identify with you on this cause. Again, I bring greetings to you from the Africa Union Commission, and we're glad to be here and to co-convene this particular event with the Commonwealth Secretariat. And because it resonates with what we currently are doing at the African Union, especially the Africa Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and in addressing the issues of the Rio Convention, some of the strategic framework has been mentioned, which African Union has been doing. On climate change, we have the Africa Union Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan 2022 to 2032, which is guiding the AU member states on their climate action, is our climate roadmap and blueprint endorsed by the African heads of state. On the issues relating to desertification, we have the Great Green Wall initiatives, and I know people will be speaking on that, covering the whole of the African continent, and different RECs are also implementing that. We have just last 2 weeks convened the first ever Africa First Biodiversity Summit, and that is the first on any continent. That was held in Botswana, Gaborone, from 2nd to 5th of this month, where we had the Gaborone Declaration on Biodiversity. Again, in September, we held the Africa Climate Summit, second Africa Climate Summit, where our leaders came up with the Addis Ababa Declaration and call to action on climate change. So these are some of the frameworks that are guiding our implementation. We have the Africa Union Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan as well. But back to your questions, how do we move from paper to action on the ground? Having said some of the things we are doing at the African Union Commission level, there are some of the examples that we can give to our member states and others in terms of moving from paper to a concrete action. And I want to list just 6 areas that we need to focus on in transforming paper to action. One is the establishment of the National Coordination Mechanism. And this will help to strengthen interministerial coordination on the issues of Rio, because we are talking about 3 conventions at a go: the UNFCCC, the UNCBD, the UNCCD. So until there is that interministerial coordination, it will be difficult to implement, because every ministry, relevant ministry responsible will be pulling in different directions. So that is one of the ways we can move from paper to action in member states or countries where that does not exist. A second is to develop integrated policy frameworks. And here again deals with issue of national strategies to ensure a joint planning and implementation. And Eswatini is a good example of that under the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, where their national NDCs is so integrated that brings all these conventions together. So we have examples from our member states on how to do this and bring an integrated approach to doing all these cross-cutting issues. The third is inclusive stakeholder engagement. And the community must be at the heart of what we do. Even at the African Union Commission, we emphasize that even to the member states, community and the vulnerable groups, especially women, youth, must be at the heart of what we do. So in that particular engagement structure, we need to bring the youth, the women, the men, and everyone on board, and in such a way we can begin to move from paper to action. The fourth deals with the capacity building and knowledge sharing, investing in training experience and how to implement integrated approach, and also South-South collaboration, because the Commonwealth work across different continents. And for us on the African continent, we want to collaborate more and see how we take things from paper, sharing the South-South experience, what has worked in this other southern region that have similar climate experience issues and challenges and characteristics with us, And the fifth will be resource mobilization and pooling. So we need to pool our resources together, develop technical human resources, and leverage on our domestic and international funding resources. And the last but not the least is on MRVs, and that has also been mentioned. If we need to measure our progress, if we need to see how we are moving from paper to action, then we need to put a system in place where we track how far we have moved, from what point, where we need to get to where we are headed, and what are the vehicles that will take us there. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogala. So we have heard from the African Union Commission the efforts that they're making to support coordination across the conventions. We've heard from the Commonwealth Secretariat as well. And now it's time to hear from the countries about what is actually happening on the ground. And I would like to start with Lesotho. Mr. Ntimo, Lesotho has experienced prolonged drought over the past few years. Please could you share how you are bringing all of government into actions to address this challenge, ensuring that land is managed sustainably and biodiversity is protected in the face of a changing climate?
Thanks, moderator, and all protocol observed. In the context of African Union and the Commonwealth climate access, as a Lesotho, we say all land processes happen on the same land, either being biodiversity loss, land degradation, and climate change. As you rightly said from the minister's perspective, Lesotho has 3 major programs under each convention. Under climate change, we have the NAP. The NAP contains programs of adaptation and building resilience from grassroots. That is facilitated by implementing line ministries and organization at country levels. The issue of building capacity among the villages, being women and men, not leaving out the youth, because the land that we are managing, we manage it in such a way that it sustains the livelihood of the current population, while not compromising those of the future generations. In that aspect, there are programs such as water harvesting to build the resilience, to elongate the availability of water resources during the drought period. The other aspect is being afforestation. You'll know Lesotho is a grassland biome country, but we need to live up to the challenge that we need forests to sequester carbon dioxide and also apply the issue of biodiversity conservation. On the issues of land degradation, Lesotho has ascribed to land degradation neutrality. That is among the sustainable goals on Agenda 2030. In it, there's a program of land restoration that is being carried out at the countryside by different land ministries. We have the ICM, Integrated Watershed Management and Renoka movement that the country has. In that aspect, we are also taking into account climate smart range resources management. And in areas where communities have adopted to the frameworks that we use, you'll realize that once the land has been restored, one, biodiversity conservation is also taken into account. You'll see the flora and fauna of those areas ascending to the best levels. In terms of land degradation, most of the sub-Saharan countries are highly degraded because of the tragedy of the commons. So we have a program of land restoration and land rehabilitation. That program is being run by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry for the communities to do that and to look after the land. There's a saying that if you restore the land, it will feed you back. It will feed you back by reconditioning of the farmer, the animals that are grazing, reconditioning in terms of water recharge within the aquifers that translate to water resources that are downstream, that will be realized by water that will be flowing through our rivers. And ultimately, I would end this submission that Lesotho is contributing more than 40% of water that is running through the Orange River, Singu Valley. That's why even our sister countries like South Africa, Botswana now lately, they still want to harness water that is flowing from those mountains. In that aspect, we therefore subscribe to Commonwealth climate finance. And I would urge the Secretariat that it should mobilize resources so that the programs I've alluded to can be strengthened. We should make a difference to people that are living at the countryside and to attain more livelihood, stable, out of poverty, and that can be achieved through financial resources mobilization. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ntimo, for sharing the progress that Lesotho is making and for highlighting that when we restore land, we are also making achievements around climate change and around restoring biodiversity. Now, we know that in practice that is the case, but what we have on paper are these 3 separate frameworks that also come with 3 separate funding streams. And so I would like to turn to Mrs. Jajo and ask about the situation in the Gambia. Mrs. Jajo, what challenges does your country face in harmonizing its efforts across the Rio Conventions, and how do you think these challenges could be resolved?
I think we are still in the, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us here. It's a pleasure to be within this very important people. For the Gambia, I'll first start by saying that one positive aspect is all the 3 Rio inventions, the focal points at the Ministry of Environment and its technical department. You have the UNFCCC focal point, which is from the Climate Change Secretariat, then the UNCBD from the Department of Parks and Wildlife, and then the UNCCD from the Department of Forestry. But I think a major challenge in terms of the harmonization of these 3 Rio inventions is the uneven distribution of attentions within these conventions. For example, when it comes to climate change conventions, the UNFCCC, there is a great attention that is placed on it, and the ministry has set up an intersectoral coordination among different sectors, from forestry, Ministry of Fisheries, Ministry of Agriculture, Health, and so on. And in fact, this intersectoral coordination is attended by ministerial level, ministers from these key sectors, in which we discuss issues around climate change and also ensure to prepare very well in the participation of the UNFCCC COP. In fact, if you look at our delegations, this COP, it's composed of people from different sectors. But then if you look at the other conventions, the UNCBD and then the UNCCD, I think over the past years, there have not been even any representation from the ministry attending this COP. Usually the participations are just from the technical departments, the focal point, and maybe one person from foreign affairs. And another key issue is in terms of communicating the outcome of those COPs, it is also very limited. So the attention that the ministry needs in terms of its involvement becomes limited as well. And I think this is something that I see like a capacity challenge, because if the ministry is really aware of the importance of all these three Rios, then I think more attention will be put in ensuring that same attention is given to all of them. So this has been a major challenge, but also another challenge is also financial resources, because obviously the participation of this requires resources to be able to fund people. But due to the limited resources, more attention is given to UNFCCC. And another gap which he has mentioned, it's MRV. I mean, when you look at climate change, we have really progressed in terms of having climate MRV at the national level. But when it comes to data on land degradation, biodiversity, it's difficult to have a holistic monitoring system at the national level. So for us, what we think would have been the best is to have one system that looked at all the indicators, and countries can report to the different Rios based on the specific indicators that they are looking at. This would address the issue of capacity gaps in terms of technology, in terms of monitoring and reporting as well. And another thing is the involvement of other sectors. Often when we talked about biodiversity, we think about, it's just the responsibility of the Department of Parks and Wildlife. But land issues are very critical, fisheries issues are very critical, and I think it's also a responsibility of national institutions to ensure that there is this institutional collaboration, intersectoral collaboration, to ensure that if we want to address the issue of biodiversity, it has to look at a holistic manner, incorporating all key relevant sectors. That would be a very good approach to ensure that there is sustainability and also there is knowledge transfer as well. And this has been a key challenge. Another challenge is also, if you look at the financing structure of, for example, the UNFCCC and also the CBD, they are different. You have UNFCCC, the Adaptation Fund, etc., whereby the other convention you have. I think they have to find a way of having, how do we work together to ensure that we address this issue in a very sustainable manner, and countries can approach either of this to solve the issue of biodiversity, to solve the issue of land degradation, solve the issue of climate change. This is a key challenge, and I think I'm happy that we have AU here and also the Commonwealth as well. I think this is what they need to look at. How do we support countries at the national to build their capacity, not just in accessing funds, but in understanding the importance of these three Rios working together to ensure that our goals, our target, our ambitions as countries is met, but also the goal set at the global level is also achieved, because they are interlinked. The goal achieved at the national level fit into the global goal. But with limited capacity, this becomes a problem. In my country, Gambia, I think this is a major challenge, because sometimes I think it's just recently that I started engaging into the UNCBD, even though I've been 10 years working at the Ministry of Environment. But this is where we need the support of these multilateral institutions, development partners, support us coming from vulnerable countries, because capacity, technology, finance are key challenge in addressing these issues. And definitely this support is needed to enhance collaborations, to enhance a holistic approach to addressing issues surrounding this three. I'm happy to know the land charter. Is it the land charter? Yes, I'm not sure whether Gambia is part of it, but excellent. I was happy, and then that's a great news. But I think that's a very excellent approach that we need to support as parties to see how best we can learn from countries, work with everybody, and address the issues of this integration within the three Rio conventions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jaju, for highlighting those challenges and also potential solutions. And you mentioned capacity, which I think is a critical issue across vulnerable states. And for that reason, the Commonwealth Secretariat, through its Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, does deploy national climate finance advisors to member states upon request. And actually, it's interesting that our three national panelists here are from countries that will soon be recipients of such national advisors. So for Lesotho and Eswatini, the national advisors have already been engaged and are working. For the Gambia, we are about to engage the advisor and deploy them very, very soon by December. So those advisors, even though they are called National Climate Finance Advisors, their scope is not only limited to helping with accessing finance, but they're also to work supporting your efforts across the three conventions by doing capacity building, for example, on negotiations training, so that your negotiators for all the conventions have the capacity they need to push for your country's agenda at fora such as the UNFCCC and the CBD and UNCCD. So please make maximum use of these advisors as they arrive in your countries, and we're so grateful to partner with you. Now turning to Eswatini, Mr. Dladla, as you are from the Eswatini Environment Authority, leading there as Executive Director, would like to hear from you about the role that national environment authorities or agencies play in guiding the efforts towards climate change mitigation and adaptation, biodiversity protection, and sustainable land management, not only in your role under the Ministry of Environment, but across the sectors of your country's economy.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Just to also thank the organizers for putting up this event. I think maybe before I can share a thought or two on the question, I think this charter, for me, I see it as a second chance for all of us really to scale up our actions across these three Rio conventions. I think I was thinking that 53 years ago, our forebears met under the meeting of environment and development in Stockholm. And then 1992, 33 years ago, they met here in Rio, largely under the umbrella of the Agenda 21, where I think the issue of the synergy of these three Rio conventions was well articulated. I think we then dropped the ball after Rio 92 in terms of the Agenda 21 approach in terms of coordinating these three Rio conventions. So I see this charter, therefore, as a second chance for us really to trace our steps back so that we can see how our programming across the three Rio conventions, which I think my colleagues have well articulated, can be better harmonized going forward. I know, for instance, that at the global level, we have the Montreal Cumin targets under the CBD. We have the land degradation neutrality targets under the UNCCD. Now we are taking off the global goal on adaptation here under the UNFCCC. So all of these are things then that we need to translate into our national actions, whether through the NAPs, through the NPSAPs, through the, currently we're doing the drought plan in Eswatini. So all of these things then must find a home in terms of how we take them forward. So I think, therefore, for me, the role of entities like myself then comes in the way we then execute some of those plans. I know, for instance, that one of the tools that I think I know is applied across many of these countries is what we call environmental and social impact assessments, where we are all aware that a lot of biodiversity is lost due to development. A lot of degradation across the African continent is somehow linked to infrastructure development. Roads infrastructure, dam construction, a lot of those impacts are not captured in the environment and social impact assessments. I think that's where we really need to focus. That's why we have developed a guideline right now of mainstreaming climate change issues on this tool. Also mainstreaming biodiversity issues on this tool. So by so doing then, we are able to then make sure that development doesn't work against our efforts in terms of these three Rio conventions. Maybe just lastly, maybe the point I want to also add is the issue of monitoring and reporting. I think when I saw your presentation earlier, I saw the issue of the role of Earth observation, remote sensing, and monitoring. I think with the current capacity that we have, with AI, capacity with free data from Earth observation and remote sensing tools, I think we really need to make sure that we're able to monitor and report on trends. I know that at the global level, things like the Global Environment Outlook have really fallen off the agenda. Things like the Africa Environment Outlook, these are tools we need to bring back so that we are able to observe and report on the progress which we have achieved across these Rio conventions. I think those are some of the thoughts maybe I would want to just share on this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dladla, and really for pointing out the role of just ESIAs, right, for all development projects. If we can make sure that climate issues, land issues, biodiversity issues are captured in that tool, that already takes us a long way in making sure that no development project is actually causing disruption across these other areas. Thank you so much for that. I have an open question to the panelists from the 3 countries. So this is for anyone to comment on. So we know that your countries have been working on your 3rd national determined contributions, your national adaptation plans, your national biodiversity strategies and action plans, your land degradation neutrality targets, all of these frameworks. Could you tell us about how integration is happening at the formulation stage of these documents? Open question for any of the 3 to answer.
Well, I'm still hot on the mic. I think there's no silver bullet on this. But I think what I've seen working was what Dr. Kala was mentioning earlier. Having the central planning ministries being part of all these frameworks, particularly through the National Development Program or Plan, which centralizes all these frameworks. Because unless those frameworks find a home in the National Development Plan for the country, then they will remain just sectoral plans, which there will be no buy-in from the other sectors. I think for me that has been one of the things that I've seen, that our NDC, our NDP has been actually anchored around coordination amongst all the key sectors and the ministries.
All right, so in your national development plan in Lesotho, you've actually anchored, in Eswatini, you've actually anchored all of these targets there. Excellent, excellent. Let's hear from the Gambia.
Yeah, I think for Gambia, our strength is all these 3 Rios. The focal point is within the same ministry. And we take a holistic approach and inclusive when developing our NDC 3. I think not just the convention, but the communities as well. The respective ministries, planning ministry, Ministry of Finance, all of them are involved in this process. So in terms of ensuring that, I don't think it's a challenge for us, because we want to ensure that our NDC is not just a mere paper, but it has ownership at the country level, and we are able to work together to implement the target that we set. And to be able to do that, we have to ensure when developing it, all hands on deck, everybody important is involved at the very beginning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taju. And then from Lesotho.
Thanks, moderator. The Ministry of Environment and Forestry back home has one of the major structures that is coordinating the National Climate Change Committee, which has participation of a number of experts from different ministries. And along the same line, the National Coordinating Committee on Land Degradation and Coordinating Committee on CBD. This platform provides a fertile land for harmonization of policies and action plans to address the 3 conventions. On the other hand, there's been a saying that a collective action bring more results than the silo mentality approach. So our ministry has made some strides to ensure that the coordination of Rio Convention is done together, and to harmonize programs as of implementation as these processes happen on land. I thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And that importance of multi-sectoral coordination is it's imperative. It's something that we cannot do without. So my last question is to our co-convener, the African Union Commission, Dr. Ogala. So taking from this discussion and from your work at the Commission, what are the most critical areas of action that you've identified to improve coordination across the multilateral environmental agreements, particularly at country level, and to ensure that our resources are used in a harmonized manner?
Thank you so much, Chibeze. I think the member states have spoken, and all I would do is also to provide an addition to what they have said. First is the issues of strengthening institutions' capacities to be able to do whatsoever we're trying to talk about, coordination among the three Rio Convention. Second is the policy coherence. The member states have talked about, breaking the silos. We need to work together and make sure that these things are integrated. But also, it also boils down to the issue of policy coherence. Are there needs for policy review? Do we need to bring in new policies and all those things? So then we are not working and pulling in different directions. And then the issues of access to finance is also key. That simplifying and harmonizing access to climate, biodiversity, land degradation finance is also one of the critical areas. And issues of finance have been mentioned across board because it's a means of implementation. We can say all these things and all the good plans and the rest, but if there is no means of implementation, which include finance, then our plans and policies will remain in the shelf. The issue of data and information management is also key. We need to invest in data and information management. And I kept saying in different fora at this scope that for us on the continent of Africa, it is not a question of there is no data. We have data with something to start with. Every of our member states have data that if you go to them, they will get that. And we have to start. The time to act is now. We cannot keep waiting until we get all the data right. Let's start with the data that we currently have. And the last is the alignment with the AU priorities and the framework, which most of them have mentioned here, the Agenda 2063, which is the Africa Blueprint, which all the member states are working towards. The Great Green Wall, we have I remember the national action plan on that for Eswatini happened when I was Commonwealth advisor to Eswatini. The SADC Great Green Wall is there. The Sahel is there. So we have the climate strategy of the AU, we have the biodiversity strategy of the AU, and all this. So that alignment with the overall AU roadmap is key. And it also supports our resource mobilization, and my sister from the Gambia mentioned that. If the AU would need to support member states, which is what we are doing in mobilizing resources, then we also have to see how does your plan align with the AU overall resources. So I think in summary, a robust coordination mechanism, integrated policies, inclusive participation, enhanced capacities and efficient resource use are key for operationalizing the effective implementation of this three Rio Convention. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogala, for wrapping the discussion up so effectively. Thank you for raising and just solidifying those points. At this point, I need to bring our panel discussion to a close because we've run out of time. It would have been lovely to continue, but we'll bring it to a close for now. We thank you so much for your participation and would like to just ask you to remain seated here while I call upon Ms. Nwamara again to give the closing remarks for this event, and then we can take some photographs afterwards for everyone's records. Thank you so much.
Please, let's give the panel members a big round of applause. So I'll say to our distinguished panel members, distinguished delegates, even those online colleagues, I think the insights we've had this afternoon have reinforced a critical truth, that the triple planetary crisis in Africa, and I think beyond, is one crisis, and it demands one integrated solution. The cost of fragmented, siloed action is measured in lost GDP, ruined harvest, and intensified human vulnerability. So I think we've spent the discussion today demonstrating that the Commonwealth Secretariat, through the Living Lands Charter, the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, the African Union's Climate Resilience Strategy and Associated Action Plan, and of course, the commitments and interventions and solutions from the member countries, Gambia, Lesotho, Eswatini, have shown us that we have practical frameworks to work on, and they're not just political declarations, but they constitute the operational roadmap for African states and the wider Commonwealth, indeed the world, to accelerate the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. To ensure this roadmap leads us to a climate resilient future, we should align with the summary and also collectively commit to action. And I'll summarize this in 3 parts. So the first one will be, and we heard this already, scaling up policy coherence, and I'd also add capacity, both institutional and human capacity. So we urge all Commonwealth member states to deepen their integration efforts. As you can see, in partnership with the African Union, the wider Secretariat initiatives, we all stand ready to assist in enhancing technical capacity at the country level and also regional level through the deployment of our Commonwealth regional, national, and thematic climate finance advisors. We must also empower our national experts, and we heard this today on the panel, such that they're able to develop, but also translate the policy commitments into durable on-the-ground action that truly addresses the thematic areas we've been discussing. And Ms. Jaju from Gambia, you mentioned coming into the negotiations for parties to speak to this point, and we appreciate this. We're also working with our young people, and I'm pleased to update that we have had the Commonwealth Youth Climate Negotiations Training, which we have expanded and are expanding to include all 3 Rio Conventions, and we work together with AU, and we're looking to come again next year to deliver this for our young people. Now, in terms of the trends, I also agree with the representative from Eswatini. And when you look at the trends of climate finance in itself, most of it goes to mitigation, 2% adaptation, and then already when you start talking about nature-based solutions, it's off. And now we need to demand for integrated finance. And so you see with the 3 Rio Conventions, there's specific funding lines for each of those 3, but money is money going to the same countries. And already, if you're fragmenting it, you're not able to have a comprehensive approach for scale. So this is perhaps our most vital message to the global finance community. Finance must flow in an integrated manner. We need to transition away from fragmented climate financing, biodiversity financing, land degradation, and work together to make sure we have overall climate action, looking at biodiversity and also land degradation and restoration. So we must unlock financing for landscape level programs and to just meet the sheer scale of the challenge we're trying to address. Through our Climate Finance Access Hub, we demonstrate the power of this approach by supporting countries to design and secure financing for projects that combine climate mitigation, adaptation, biodiversity, and land restoration outcomes. And I was pleased to share in my presentation one such example. We have several of these to show and also, replicate across board. So we have shown that this integrated financing is not only possible, but essential. Last but not least, we need to strengthen technical partnerships. We need to ensure that our country expertise is sustainable and sustained over time. Therefore, we call on our existing partners and also welcome new partners to support our technical agencies in country and commit this technical support alongside the financial resources to help turn the 6x5 roadmap into bankable, implementable projects focusing on delivering tangible results on the ground. So the political will is here, the technical roadmap is in place. African countries and the wider Commonwealth have shown leadership. We've demonstrated what is possible. So our countries are not just asking for support, we are offering an investment in a resilient, productive, and secure future. As we heard in the opening remarks by the director, when we care for the land, we care for humanity. When we restore ecosystems, we restore hope. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, thank you so much for your kind attention. I hope that we've at least raised some awareness around the Living Lands Charter and around the African Union's frameworks for integrated implementation across the 3 Rio Conventions. I would like to draw this event to a close and just invite our panelists to stand for a photo, and the rest of us are welcome to disperse. And thank you so much for being here.